A wounded cowboy was saved by 3 Apache women, but their sacred law now binds him to all of them. What he thought was survival became destiny, and fate tied their hearts together forever. Like the video, subscribe for more Wild West love stories and tell me where you're watching from. Let's get started. The desert stretched endlessly under the late afternoon sun, its heat wavering above the ground like spirits rising from ancient dust. Nita, Koa, and Tasi moved silently through the brush, tracking a wounded deer they had spotted earlier near a cluster of red rocks. Each step they took was careful, practiced, the movements of women who had grown up reading the land as if it were scripture. The hunt was not only for food, but for honor. Their families depended on what they brought home. But as they neared the canyon's edge, the trail shifted, telling a different story. The deer tracks vanished, replaced by something heavier, bootprints dragging uneven. Blood drops dotted the sand, dark and drying in the heat. The sisters paused, exchanging glances. Outsiders rarely entered this part of Apache land, and when they did, it never meant peace. Still, the tracks were fresh, the blood too heavy to ignore. Tasi knelt and touched the ground, feeling the warmth left behind. "He is close," she murmured. Nita scanned the landscape, her sharp eyes locking onto a shape lying beneath the shadow of a rock formation. They approached cautiously, bows drawn, hearts steadied. What they found made them stop mid-step. A cowboy, young, dirt-covered and bleeding from a deep wound across his ribs, lay half-conscious, one hand gripping his torn shirt as though he still believed he could hold himself together. His hat lay face down beside him, bullet holes in the brim telling their own tale. When Koa nudged him with the end of her bow, his eyes flickered open, blue and clouded with pain. He blinked at the 3 silhouettes towering over him. For a moment, fear crossed his face. Fear of who they were, fear of where he had fallen, fear of whether he would be left to die in land not his own. But the women did not kill the helpless. It was not their way. Nita stepped forward, lowering her weapon. The cowboy tried to speak, but his voice cracked, lost to thirst and blood loss. He reached for his canteen, only to find it empty. Koa crouched and touched his forehead, feeling the fever rising. They all knew the law of their people. No outsider discovered alive within the borders of sacred ground could be abandoned. To do so was to anger the ancestors, to invite misfortune upon the tribe. And if the life saved belonged to a man found by 3 unmarried maidens, the ancient debt was deeper than any arrow wound. A man saved by 3 women belonged to them, spirit-bound, fate-tied. A law old enough to exist before the first rifle ever echoed across the plains. The cowboy, unaware of this destiny shaping itself around him, tried to rise on shaking arms. Pain shot through him, forcing a cry from his throat. Nita caught him before he collapsed again, her strength surprising him. "Easy," she whispered in Apache, though he could not understand. His breath grew shallow, his eyelids heavy. The world around him blurred until the 3 women seemed like desert angels, soft voices weaving through his fading consciousness. He tried to speak his name, but only a broken exhale came out. Realizing he would die if left untreated, the sisters worked quickly. Tasi tore her sash and pressed it to his wound. Koa lifted his shoulders while Nita checked his pulse, shaking her head at how faint it had become. With practiced unity, they hoisted him onto a makeshift stretcher made from branches and the remnants of their deer tracking cloth. He groaned, but stayed unconscious. The canyon wind carried their chants softly as they began the long journey back to their hidden encampment, deep in a valley outsiders had never lived to describe. The path was steep and winding, but they moved with the determination of women who understood the weight of what they carried. Not just a man, but a responsibility that would alter the shape of their futures. Occasionally, the cowboy stirred, whispering words too faint to make out. At one point, he reached out instinctively and grabbed Nita's wrist, as if afraid they would disappear and leave him behind. She gently freed her hand, but didn't move away. Instead, she kept pace beside him, watching the color of his face, the rise and fall of his breath. When they arrived at the camp, the elders gathered around, curiosity bright in their eyes. Outsiders were rare, wounded outsiders even more so. The medicine woman inspected him carefully, speaking to the sisters in low tones. "He will live," she said, "but he is bound to you three now. The law is as old as these mountains." Nita, Koa, and Tasi exchanged silent glances, not of fear, but of realization. Fate had stepped into their hunt and placed this cowboy directly in their path. Whether this was blessing or curse, time alone would tell. They laid him near the fire in their dwelling, covering him with warm hides. The cowboy finally opened his eyes fully, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings, the stone walls, the feathered charms hanging from the ceiling, the mixture of smoke and sage in the air. He saw the three women watching him, their expressions unreadable. He tried to speak again, voice raw. "Where am I?" His words meant nothing to them, yet the tone, fear, confusion, gratitude, was universal. Nita touched his shoulder gently, and though he didn't understand the words, her calm voice soothed him. As the fire crackled through the night, the weight of destiny settled between them. The cowboy, barely clinging to life, had no idea of the rule that now tied him to the three women who had saved him. And the women, brave, quiet, bound by tradition, could only wonder what kind of man fate had delivered to their hands. Outside, coyotes howled under the rising moon. But inside the camp a different kind of story had begun, one written not by bullets or blood, but by ancient law, unexpected mercy, and the mysterious winds of the Wild West. The cowboy woke slowly, blinking against the warm glow of firelight. The scent of crushed sage and wild herbs filled the dwelling, mingling with the faint hum of chanting voices just outside the hide door. He winced when he tried to shift. Pain shot across his ribs, sharp but cleaner than before. Someone had washed the wound, treated it, wrapped him carefully. As his eyes adjusted, he saw the three women sitting nearby, Nita grinding herbs, Koa stitching a torn blanket, Tasi watching him with quiet intensity. Their calmness unsettled him more than the ache in his body. When the hide flap was pushed aside and the chief elder stepped in, the three women lowered their gazes immediately. She was a tall, stern woman whose hair hung in long, silver braids, her face carved with time and wisdom. She studied the cowboy in silence, her dark eyes moving from the bandaged wound to his restless hands. Then she spoke, her voice firm and unyielding. "3 maidens found you alive on sacred land. 3 maidens saved your life. The law of the ancestors stands." She paused, letting the weight settle. "You are bound to them." The cowboy's breath caught. He struggled to sit up, clutching the fur beneath him. "Bound? How?" he asked, though he sensed the answer before the elder spoke. She gestured to the 3 women. "A man saved by 3 unmarried daughters belongs to them. Their spirits are tied, their futures shared." The words hit him like a hammer. "Married to all 3? His world tilted, not from the fever, but from the impossible fate laid before him. The elder waited, unmoved by his shock. It was law older than any boundary he had known. When the elder left, silence filled the room. The 3 women exchanged uncertain glances, as unsure as he was. Nita spoke first, her voice calm, but edged with vulnerability. "We did not choose this law," she said, "but we honor what is given." Koa, always more direct, added softly, "You live because of us. The ancestors believe that ties a man to the ones who saved him." Tasi looked at him for a long moment before whispering, "We do not force you. But if you walk away from fate." The cowboy swallowed hard, overwhelmed by their honesty. He had known danger, loneliness, violence, But he had never faced anything like this. 3 women bound to him by ancient rule, trusting him with their futures. He looked down at his hands, scarred from years of ranch work and harder decisions. "I don't understand your ways," he admitted quietly. "But I know this: I won't dishonor anyone who gave me my life back." The women exchanged a look, not relief, not acceptance, but the beginning of something fragile and unspoken. Outside, the drums began to beat slowly, as if the land itself acknowledged the moment. Days passed, and the cowboy grew stronger, though not fast enough for his restless spirit. Yet in those days, he learned their languages, not just words, but gestures, glances, silences. Nita's calm steadiness guided him through the customs he did not know. Koa's fierce spirit challenged him, forcing him to question everything he had assumed about the people he once feared. Tassie, gentle and thoughtful, tended his wounds with hands that trembled only when she believed no one was watching. Each woman was different, yet all 3 were bound by the same law, and now by the same future. In the quiet evenings, they spoke around the fire. The cowboy shared stories of cattle drives, storms on the plains, and nights where loneliness felt heavier than a saddle. The women shared tales of their ancestors, of battles won, lands kept, and spirits who watched over every living thing. Their laughter surprised him. Their strength humbled him. Slowly, the fear between them dissolved, replaced by curiosity and something warmer, something he couldn't yet name. What began as obligation grew into companionship. What began as law grew into possibility, and possibility in a world as cruel as the frontier was rare. One night, as the fire burned low and shadows stretched across the ground, Nita approached him with a question that had lingered since the day they found him. "Do you wish to leave?" she asked, her voice steady but her eyes uncertain. The question pierced him. He thought of the life he had before, dusty trails, empty nights, no one waiting for him. Then he looked at the 3 women who had carried him from the edge of death, who had offered him not ownership, but belonging. He took a slow breath and shook his head. "I think I was meant to be here." The women did not smile at first. They simply looked at one another, as if confirming that they, too, felt the shift in the air. Then Tassie stepped closer and placed her hand over his. It was a simple gesture, but it carried a world of meaning. Koa joined her, resting her palm against his shoulder. Finally, Nita bowed her head, as if acknowledging that fate, and perhaps something deeper, had made its choice. The cowboy felt the weight of the moment and the warmth of their hands, and for the first time in years, his chest loosened. When the ceremony came, it was not grand or loud. It was quiet beneath the stars, with only the fire and the spirits as witnesses. The elder spoke blessings over them, the wind carrying each word into the darkness. The cowboy stood between the 3 women who had become his lifeline, each of them holding a piece of the man he had once been and the man he was becoming. When the ritual ended, the women touched their foreheads to his, one by one. And in that moment, he understood. He had not been claimed. He had been chosen. And for the first time in his life, he felt chosen too.